Good evening and welcome to the joint budget workshop of the City Council and the Lake Forest Housing Authority Board, May 8th, 2018. And we on Facebook Live? And welcome to those of you on Facebook. Tonight's meeting is unusual in two respects. The first respect is that it's a workshop and not a regular council meeting. And the second respect is that we have our Mayor Pro Tem, Leah Basil, is absent but present in spirit and by voice. So she will be attending. And can you hear us?
I can hear you. Good evening.
Okay, good evening to you too. That means procedurally we'll do things a little bit differently. And that will include our roll call, which we should do now because everybody check in. I'll start on my right with Councilman Robinson.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Basil, can you hear us all okay?
One more. Yes, I can hear you all okay.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do the roll call. Councilmember Robinson, Councilmember Cagley,
Present.
Councilmember Voights,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Basil,
Here.
Mayor Gardner.
Present.
Okay, and I just need to verify, Mayor Pro Tem Basil, that you have posted the agenda at the site where you're located?
That is correct.
Okay, and everyone here can hear Ms. Basil, yes? And council members, does this sound like Mayor Pro Tem Basil on the phone?
I'm not sure that's her. Can you say a couple of words?
Hello there.
Okay.
Very convincing. Thank you.
All right, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Voights.
Please rise and salute the greatest symbol of freedom in the free world. Hand over your heart, ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. And City Manager, do you want to, City Clerk, should I ask for public comments on the budget item?
We've had none submitted, Your Honor.
None submitted. Okay. Then City Manager, it's your show.
Thank you. Mayor and members of the council, we have a PowerPoint presentation from our Assistant City Manager, Keith Neves.
Mayor and members of the City Council, tonight I'll walk through a PowerPoint presentation with the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget. After the presentation, we can have a question and answer session, and we can walk through each departmental budget if we feel that is needed. And then we have another agenda item with a few items on it, and we can go through that agenda item after we go through the budget.
So do you want to complete your presentation or take questions as we go through it?
I think it's best if I complete the presentation because I think some of those questions might be answered as we go through the presentation, and then at the end of the presentation, then we can get some questions on it.
Okay.
All right, so tonight, the items we're going to review tonight are the proposed city operating budget and the proposed housing authority operating budget. So for fiscal year, we'll look at a couple things in review for fiscal year 2017, 2018. The Civic Center, we approved construction contracts for the campus. That was a few meetings ago. We've completed the rough grading and the parking deck. I think the parking deck will be signed off in the next 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, here or there, probably by the end of the month. And then we're currently, it's finishing up the street construction and utilities by probably end of the June. And then that, and the contracts for the construction of the campus itself, of course, are flowing as we speak. A couple other things we've done in fiscal 17-18, we paid off the unfunded liability for the CalPERS for our UAL. We open City Hall 5 days a week.
Hold your applause until the end.
City Council approved the creation of a traffic and parking commission that will be set up that is in the new 18-19 budget. We implemented electronic plan review in, well, I'll call it development services, but we're going to start calling it community development. And we've adopted an ordinance on short-term lodging. City Council funded projects in the 5-year strategic plan. And then looking forward into the current budget, what we're proposing tonight, one of the bigger objectives is, of course, the Civic Center. That's probably the biggest project in the city's history. Will be construction of the Lakes Fork Civic Center. A couple of things on there we're going to be bringing back to the City Council. Staffing and operational policies. We're going to need to staff this, so within the next fiscal year, we'll be bringing you back things relating to the construction, not only the construction of the Civic Center, but how we're going to staff the Civic Center and policies regarding the Civic Center. We'll also be bringing back facilities maintenance contracts. It's a pretty big campus. We're going to need new maintenance contracts to be able to keep up the facilities to a certain standard, so you'll see those within the next fiscal year. And the staff is also going to do a comprehensive citywide fee study, because the new Civic Center is going to have quite a few new fees, and we will bring back a fee study for council to review policies and procedures and how they want to implement new fees. So that will be coming in fiscal year 2018-2019, and that is in the proposed 2018-19 operational budget. Also coming up in 18-19, we'll be updating the general plan. As you know, that's already started. We'll be going full speed into 2018-19. There'll be community meetings and community workshops. So, Gail Ackerman will be heading that up. We'll also be implementing some of the 5-year strategic plan goals that the City Council approved a couple months ago in their strategic plan workshop. Couple of those are, they've given us direction, and they are in the proposed 2018-2019 budget, paying off the debt for Alton Parkway, saving over $1 million by paying that off early. We will pay that off December 1st, 2018, and by paying that off, like I said, we'll save over $1 million paying it off early. Investments in the pavement for the streets. The City Council set aside almost $7 million for the 7-year pavement management program to keep the PCI up to an 80. So what you see in the fiscal year 2018-2019 operational budget...
Could you tell the people what the PCI is?
I'll shoot that over to the Public Works Director.
That's our pavement condition index on a scale from 0 to 100, 100 being the best, 80 is considered good.
I'm sorry to interrupt. If we could just pause for a moment. It appears we've lost Mayor Pro Tem Basil. We need to dial her back in. Sorry. She sent a message to someone.
Thank goodness for Facebook Live. I was watching along. Sorry about that.
Okay, well, we'll continue. I don't know what Mayor Pro Tem missed, but she'll just have to catch up a little bit.
Well, I'm good. I was watching on Facebook Live, so I haven't missed anything.
Okay. Okay, so we were just talking about the pavement, keeping the pavement management up to an 80 PCI, and the Public Works Director, Tom Wheeler, just explained that. And then also, and Council set aside $7 million for that. So over the next 7 years, it's about $1.2 million a year, which we will match with M2 funds and some SB1 funds, and we'll be able to keep our streets up to a very high standard. Another thing the City Council set aside in that workshop was $7 million for the upgrade of 10 city parks. So that money has been restricted and set aside for those 10 city parks, and our Community Services Department will bring back a staff report in the next couple meetings with tentative plans, how that's going to go forward. Also proposed in the 18-19 budget is what we have in here is part-time employee compensation increases. And that is a byproduct of the governor wanting to get minimum wage up to $15 an hour. So we've had to adjust some of our part-time employees because they're falling below the minimum wage and bring them up to the minimum wage. So that is in the budget. It was about $35,000. Also, changes to the city organizational structure. What we've done, this is cost neutral. We're kind of transitioning to a maintenance city after the building of the Civic Center. We're going more towards data collection and program analysis. And what this has done, we've taken a department, we've gotten rid of one whole department, put in economic development in the city manager's office, and taken code enforcement, put that back down in community development, and then police services is under Brett Channing in management services. So what it did for us is we erased a whole department head and then created some other new positions, but it's completely cost neutral to the city. Also, we've expanded community engagement. As you see tonight, Leah, you were still on Facebook Live, even though we lost you on the speaker. And
Well, I'm still on speaker.
you're still on speaker. We got you back. And then, you know, a couple of the other things, the pop-up city halls, and some of the other social media, you know, Twitter, Facebook, you know, we're doing a whole lot more, expanding it for the community, for community engagement. We're also continuing progress in the development of the new master plan communities. Baker Ranch probably will be finished and completed by late fall with their entire project. We have 2 new projects just starting. They're currently being graded. That is Serrano Summit and Pinnacle. That's just right behind this building up at Serrano Summit. And those are just starting to be graded and finished grading, and you'll start seeing models going up there. And then we have the Baldwin Brothers up in Portola Hills and Land C. So those master plan communities are still moving forward, and, you know, they look like, you know, most of them have told us, you know, 2021, 2022, all of them will be finished. And then, you know, these proposed budgets are balanced and consistent with the city's fiscal policies. So what I want to do now is kind of walk through the general fund and show you that we do have a balanced budget, we do have a surplus, but let's kind of walk through the numbers and show you where it's at. So beginning balance in the general fund was $23.6 million. We have revenues of $49 million. We have expenditures of $47.1 million. Revenues less expenditure, you have a $1.8 million surplus. We are transferring out $16.6 million for capital projects, and that leaves us an ending balance of just roughly $8.8 million. General fund expenditures are roughly $47.1 million. That is a decrease of almost $800,000 or 1.8% from the 2017-2018 adopted budget. So we are actually decreasing expenditures. Most of those expenditures were one-time expenditures. If you remember last year, we had roughly almost $900,000 in one-time expenditures. That is what, you know, it's relatively a flat budget on the expenditure side, except for the one-time expenditures that are being taken out, and that's what you see the decrease. Here's a pie chart showing the general fund expenditures by department. I like to show this every year just to show our 2 biggest cost centers, and that is police services at 39% of our total expenditure budget in the general fund, followed by Public Works Department. And then you see a lot of the other departments just kind of follow through with single digits. But the police department is your biggest driver of cost and increases. That 39, it's gone up from 36 to 37 to 38, 39. You know, what I see in the next couple of years is that's going to be above 40%. It's just the way the police services is. And then, of course, Public Works. Public Works has a lot of contracts, a lot of CPI increases in contracts, and that's just the nature of how Public Works is. You know, here's some of our general fund revenues. Some of our, you know, our three biggest general fund revenues are property tax, sales tax, and transient occupancy tax, which is a hotel tax. Property taxes are about 7.7% increase this year. You know, a lot of that is from the homes coming in Lake Forest and the new neighborhoods. Property values are going up. Again, sales tax almost at 3.3%. That is probably normal for our city. We don't go up fast. We don't go down fast. Property tax has always been pretty consistent in the 3 to 4% range in this city. It really doesn't get higher than that, but it really doesn't get lower than that. And then TOT, transient occupancy tax, that's a hotel tax. Our hotels continue to do a tremendous job in filling their vacancies because we just see this number going up year after year after year. Just a little hindsight on that, we do have 3 new hotels coming into the city. One has pulled permits. We're waiting for the other 2 to pull permits. They're down off Lake Forest and Rockford. So there will be 3 new hotels coming into the city within the next 2 years. All the other taxes rise about 4.2%. Overall, revenues are up about 4.4% for total revenues in the general fund. And that's where we see it right here. Overall revenues, $49 million, increase of $2.1 million or 4.4%. Now, we have a reserve policy for emergencies. So our general fund reserve policy is fully funded. The beginning balance was $24 million. We actually have a transfer out of about $400,000 back into the general fund balance, and the ending balance will be $23.6 million. Now, you're probably asking me, why are we taking money out of reserves? Our reserve policy states that we base our 40% off revenue. So at mid-year, we had a lot of one-time revenue which increased our reserves, but we brought it back down for the adopted budget. There was about $1.5 million of one-time revenue that came in 17-18. That's not going to come in 18-19. So the reserve policy is going to stick at about $23.6 million. Now we do have transfers out. I said a few things about this a little earlier. $16.6 million in transfers out. Where is that going and what is that? Well, it's for infrastructure. It's for the pavement management, 7-year pavement management program, and this was what council gave staff direction in the 5-year strategic plan workshop. So we have set aside $7 million for pavement management program. We have set aside $7 million for the Neverheard Park improvement program, and we have also set aside roughly $3 million to pay off the Alton debt service. And by paying off the Alton debt service, that will make the city completely debt-free. We paid off our pension unfunded liability last October 2017. We'll pay this December 2018, the Alton debt service, and the city will have absolutely no debt on the books after that. So I'll give you a little general fund summary. The proposed general fund budget for fiscal year 2018-2019 is balanced. We have a surplus of roughly $1.8 million. We're projected to remain balanced over the 5-year look forward for the 5-year strategic plan. Go back to the surplus of roughly $1.8 million. When we get to the next slide, I will show you why staff will be recommending to not spend any of that $1.8 million. I think going through the 5-year strategic plan just a couple months ago, the city council gave us direction on what they wanted in the city and what they want to spend their money on, and we have that implemented in the 2018-2019 budget and going forward and in the strategic plan. But, get to the next slide and I'll kind of show you where we're at over a 5-year projection. So if you look at the 5-year projection, the first year, of course, you see the red and blue lines are separated. We get to fiscal year 1920 and we cross lines a little bit. Why are we crossing lines? Because that's the year that we're going to open up the new Civic Center complex. And by opening up the new Civic Center complex, we have almost $800,000 for new employees, and for community services, so they can run a community center, a senior center, a performing arts center. So that is money to actually help community services hire additional employees. We are also hiring additional, we have in the 5-year strategic plan in that year to hire additional patrol officers. Now, we will bring all these reports back to you during the fiscal year 18-19 year and let the city council make those decisions. But if you look forward, then the lines uncross in fiscal year 2021, 21-22, and 22-23. But the 1.8 million surplus we have this year will be needed and to enable us to be able to hire and get that civic center complex going in fiscal year 19-20. Those lines do not cross the last 3 years out, but it's not a huge surplus in each of those years. It averages $500,000 to $700,000. Okay, yeah, go back. Okay, so one of the biggest driving forces of these lines, what we have projected right now for the police contract. The police contract is roughly almost $17 million. And this year, it's going up 5.5%, or $890,000. That's probably our biggest cost driver that's affecting our general fund. And it's been going up about that rate for probably 3 to 4 years now. Looking forward, we have the Sheriff's Department gave me their 5-year plan, and I plugged in their 5-year plan numbers, but that 5-year plan was 17, 18, 18, 19. It's about a year old. They haven't updated their 5-year plan yet. And that is really basically a 4% going forward for each of these years. Now, this year I'd say 5.5%. If we put the 5.5% in the budget and think it's going to go up 5.5% each of these next years, those lines will be even. We will just have a balanced budget going the next 3 years. So all the MOUs in the Sheriff's Department have, they have all those numbers in, the ones that have been approved, but they are starting to renegotiate MOUs right now. So until we get to the point where we know what they are, I don't want to plug in any numbers and just make some guesses. So we just have some concerns that the Sheriff's contract is a big contract. It's the biggest contract in the city, and we will see some numbers or some lines cross if it starts hitting over 5%, 6%, 7% in the next years. So just to be aware of that. Okay. So all funds together, these are special revenue funds, capital funds, general funds. You've got an 85.5 beginning balance, $85.5 million beginning balance, revenues of $61.1 million, expenses of $57.6 for operating, $25.9 for capital, and then comes out, revenues less expenditures are about $22.4 million in the negative. That means you're starting to spend your fund balances on capital projects. That doesn't mean you have a deficit. You're just spending more money this year than what you're bringing in because you saved it away for these projects. And the ending balances will be roughly $63.1 million. Just a pie chart showing your largest revenue sources on your entire operating budget. That includes the general fund. Of course, property taxes at 33%, and then sales tax at 28%, and then licenses and permits. One of these, the user fees and charges, used to be our biggest category. That's where the impact fees are coming in. We're in a little, since everybody's grading and not bringing in fees right now, it's kind of a little lull. But, over the last 3 to 4 years, we've brought in over $12 to $15 million each year, but that will come back. We have roughly about $32 million more to collect from impact fees for the OSA operating area. And then this is showing Lake Forest as a full contract city. If you look at our city, we contract out all of our services. Unlike, if I kind of compare us to the city of Tustin, they're a full maintenance city. We're a full contract city. If you look at personnel at 16%, if you look at a city like the city of Tustin, who is a full service city with police, water, sewer, maintenance crews, everything except for fire, that would probably be 86%. But since we're a full contract city, and that's what's helped us keep the PERS obligation so low, is we contract out all of our services. So it kind of shows you that contract services is 57%, personnel 16%, and then maintenance and operations around 26%. So it's helping us control our cost. Now I'll review the Housing Authority budget for 2018-19, the operating budget. We're starting with about a $300,000 beginning balance. Revenues coming in $892,100. That is the sale of the authority partial. That should be finalized maybe July, August, September of 2018. Expenditures of $134,900, and then of course your revenues less expenditures $757,000. Plus your beginning fund balance, you're going to have about $1,063,000 in your Housing Authority fund at the end of the day. Wrapping up the budget presentation, we have a balanced budget. Our reserves are fully funded. Our infrastructure, what council directed us at the 5-year strategic plan, and that is, I'll remind everybody again, your pavement management program, your 10 city parks, and paying off the debt service for the Alton Parkway is fully funded in this budget, and then the city is in good financial condition.
Okay, before we go through any individual items, does the council have any questions on the material that's been presented? Let's start with Mayor Pro Tem Basil. You still there?
First of all, I'd like to say great job on the budget. It's always nice to hear that, we have a balanced fund and, we're covering all of our expenses. I did have one small question. It was regarding the 5-year projection. From my recollection, the last time we did a budget review, the gap between our projected spending and our actual spending was a little bit closer. Is this because of the $1.8 million that you're proposing that we keep in the budget from this year that will give us a little bit more of a gap?
Yes, those lines appear to be looking a little further apart than what you saw at your 5-year strategic plan, and I think I also showed you these at the mid-year budget. But revenue has gone up a little bit more than what we projected back then a couple months ago. So they're a little bit further apart, but they're not much. It's not enough for me to say, hey, it looks like revenue's coming in even more. So, Mayor Pro Tem, yes, they do appear to be a little further apart than what you saw last time, but it's really pennies. It's not a lot of money.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Councilman Robinson?
A question regarding the same slide. When you're looking out 5 years, are you factoring in any type of housing downturn, any recession, or is this just business as usual compared to the last few years?
This is just business as usual. We try to take out all the one-time revenue that gets put into budgets that might be 2 years out. It'll just come in one out. But this is business as usual as the economy is going right now. I don't have anything in the 3rd or 4th year saying there's going to be a downturn. I think we do it, since we do update this every year, we don't wait every other year or every 3 years to update this. I'll look at it every single year, and every time we, either do a mid-year or a budget presentation or do something with the strategic plan, we'll always update this and keep it updated on a current basis.
Sure. Thank you very much. I appreciate the comment there, and I expected that was going to be the answer. I also expect that we're constantly planning for contingencies because, I think that we are in one of the longer stretches in our nation's history of not having a recession or an economic downturn. So the likelihood that it occurs during this 5-year projection is probably fairly high, but none of us can tell the future. So, it's that proper planning is really important. In the past, we've done a great job of making sure that we maintained our expenses at where revenue was coming in, and I just hope that we continue to do that, and we're planning ahead so that we don't get caught in the lurch. So, thanks.
Colonel Cagley?
Not this time, thank you.
Councilman Voigt?
Yeah, of this, the 7 million going to our neighborhood park improvements, and we got 7 million going into our upgrade of our street improvements, and then 3 million to pay off the Alton debt services, right? What are we transferring out for the construction of the parking structure right now? I didn't see anything there.
The parking structure is not a transfer out. That doesn't come from the general fund. That's coming from the impact fees for the OSA.
So that's not actually transfer out, that's just going into...
That is being spent directly from when we receive the impact fees from the OSA, we put it in a capital fund directly, and that's just being charged right out of there.
Awesome. So we're just paying that as cash flow.
That's cash flow, yes.
Thank you. Very good job.
I had two questions. The first one is, we're going to do a fee study, and we're already contracted for that. Are the projected results of that fee study into the revenue pictures that we see here, or would that all be additive?
They are not projected into this. They would be added in as soon as the council made those decisions. I'll bring back, we'll get a fee study going. It's probably going to be 6 to 8 months, and we're going to get it to you after the first of the year, 2019. The council would have to make a lot of decisions on what to do with a lot of different types of fees.
And just for the people's information, when was the last time we did a fee study?
2008.
Okay, so the chances are pretty good that most of the fees are going to go up.
Yeah, we're still on a lot of fees, especially in Gail's department. We're still using salaries from then because they didn't have any escalators in them. So, yeah, we need to do a fee study.
And the second question I had is something interesting about the property tax. Could you explain to people, nearly half the property tax is something that we call the motor vehicle in lieu backfill, and just so that people understand that half of that property tax number actually is something else. A brief discussion.
Yeah, if you look at the property tax, it looks like the highest revenue source for the city, but there is a portion of it that back in 03, 04, when the state was in a lot of trouble and about to go bankrupt, that they shifted some revenue sources up there, and so they backfilled us with property tax on a vehicle license fee that we used to get from registration of vehicles. That is a permanent shift, so we call it in lieu of VLF still, but it is a permanent shift, and it is permanent property tax that will come to us. It's not based on any registration of vehicles. If they go up or down, it's based on assessed valuation on the increase on this. So it is pure property tax, but it is not your secured property tax, which you get from your residents on the single-family and multifamily homes or commercial.
And that's nearly half, actually half
That's
of the property
nearly,
tax.
yeah, that's a little, it's about $10 million for our secure, not our secured, but our regular property tax, and this is $8 million for the VLF.
Okay, well, as Mayor Pro Tem Basil said, I don't know what more we could expect. Debt-free, in the black with the budget going forward, maybe some problems, but we have more than adequate reserves to handle them. So that looks very good. Did you want to, or did the council want to go through it excruciatingly category by category, or did you have questions about specific categories? Councilman Voights?
I think that I have confidence in Keith, and so I'd just go category by category and just move through.
Okay, that's a general consensus. All right, then let's go just briefly through each of the categories.
So we can
see if there are any comments.
You know, we can. What I'll do is I'll walk you through department by department, and if there's any questions on those departments, we'll get the department head to answer them.
Yeah, I think just briefly, is it going up or is it going down? What are the highlights? What did they achieve? And then are there any questions?
So we will start with the city manager division. Or city council, yeah. Well, let's start with the city council first. So that's the first one. So does the city council have any questions?
Excuse me 1 second. Do we really have to go through each one? I mean, I can't imagine that there's a whole lot of value unless there's questions.
We got a balanced budget, we've got a surplus, and you've done this, and we're pretty sure that you cross your T's and dot your I's.
Yeah, most of what is in this budget is really what the city council directed us to put in this at the strategic plan. It's a flat budget except for the objectives that came out of the strategic plan, whether it was the infrastructure that we're transferring out, the money for the parks or the pavement management system or paying off the debt. All the other stuff from the strategic plan, those 1 and 2 items are all in the operation budgets. Nobody has really added anything compared to the 17-18 operation budget for the city's general fund. It's just anything that was with the strategic plan that we added to it, because that's what council directed us to do at that meeting. So there's really no ups or downs. There could be a couple here, ups and downs, some contracts that had CPI increases, new contracts that we signed during the year that were a little bit more because of inflation, but that's just normal cause of business and operations that are going up and down. There's no new big money in any department, really.
Yeah, well, that would be my preference, too, that if we had some questions about a specific issue.
May I ask
raise
a
those.
question?
Yes, you may.
Okay. I don't see the need to go over the entire budget. I think you guys have done a great job. I share the same opinion. But I did have just one question I was hoping you could answer for me. And it's on page 14 of the board packet. And it's operating budget analysis. And it breaks down taxes, revenue by category, and it starts with 15-16 actual and then 16-17. I just had a question because I noticed a dip in taxes.
She's,
Oh, are you gone? Oh, yeah, I'm asking her, is she gone? Of course, she's gone. Hey, call us back. She's on Facebook Live.
I do have a question on.
Could you hold till she comes back? Oh, she's still there?
I think
She's never been this quiet.
Leah, if you can hear me, I'm going to hang up and call you back.
My thought is that we just,
Yeah,
you know,
have
we announce
questions.
city council department, any questions, and then if there are none, then we just move on to the next one rather than getting.
That's what I meant.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I thought you meant you
No,
wanted...
no, it's just go through because everything's lower or the same.
No, yeah, I misunderstood what you were asking for. That's why I said excruciating detail. That was my,
No,
let's not do it.
Please leave a message after the tone. Thank you.
All right, hey, we're talking to you.
Thank you for calling me back. I don't know why that fell off again.
Okay, welcome back. We haven't done a thing. We're waiting for you.
So where did I drop off?
So I'm looking at where Mayor Pro Tem, I believe you are looking at, and that's under taxes, where it says 2015, 2016 actual, 16, 17 actual, and then budget drops off, and then the proposed 18, 19 goes up to 40 million. Is that what you're looking at?
Did we lose you again? We lost her again. When I Skyped in that time, I was there the whole time. Yeah. But that's the difference between Skype and...
I apologize. I guess I must need an antenna on top of my head.
Okay, are you here?
I'm ready now.
Okay.
So Mayor Pro Tem, that year was the ending of the triple flip. And so what the city received is, it was a cleanup of the triple flip in sales taxes. So we've got, I think it was either an extra quarter or an extra month's payment for the ending of the triple flip. Now, the triple flip was like 12 or 14 years. So that's what you see why there was an increase and then a dip.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions about the any of the material in the department budgets?
I
Councilman
have some
Robinson?
from the various departments, so.
Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to start with the legal budget, and there's a line in here that I'm hoping to try to get some clarification on. It says assumption of DA prosecutions. So I don't know if you have any idea of what we do, but I've briefly had a conversation recently with the city manager, and so this line kind of surprised me. I'm guessing it has to do with things like graffiti and things of that nature, but...
Yes. A few years back, this goes back maybe 6 or 7 years, we would refer cases to the DA, and they kept getting dismissed in the interest of justice, which is a category that I've been told is used when it's just too low level for the DA to pay attention to. Understandable, there's a lot going on. And so the city took the option of deputizing our city attorney's staff to go into court and prosecute those, and they're municipal code violation type things. So that's what that language is referring to.
Okay, so do we have an idea of how low that gets down the ladder at this point? I mean, we've talked a lot about Prop 47 and 57 and the number of crimes that have moved from felonies to misdemeanors to citations and not much happening, and it impacts residents in a variety of ways. So I'm just wondering if that might apply in this particular category or not.
No, we haven't really changed what we've been doing, and we do it very infrequently, but it's generally graffiti, those type things. So I could look into it and get back to you on what specifically we're doing, but my memory is telling me it's primarily graffiti and things related to code enforcement.
Okay.
Yeah, it's generally the type of work we do would be your code enforcement staff. So it's going to be graffiti, it's going to be nuisance abatement, it could be, littering or trespassing if it's a repeat offender and a neighborhood's complaining about it. It sort of depends on the circumstances, but most likely it's graffiti and nuisance abatement.
Okay, and I guess where I'm trying to get to is, we've had this new threshold of under $950 that it's basically a citation. I'm wondering how the DA is performing in those particular cases. We're hearing from some residents that if your iPad gets stolen out of your car, sorry, they're getting a citation. If we actually catch them, hopefully you get your iPad back, but nothing much is going to happen. So I'm kind of curious whether or not we could be doing something about that where the DA wouldn't, and whether there'd be any value in that. So that's where the question's coming from. If you can just give me some additional information, because
Sure.
Again, it's something I've been thinking about, and then I saw the phrase in here, and it really came to light. Let's see. Sorry, I'm going to have to try to get to each one of the pages here. On page 82, this is more in the performance measures, and this is specifically in the finance department. I went through some of the performance measures, and frankly, it seemed like we were kind of grasping, trying to find some metrics to actually report on. And I didn't see a whole lot of value, but this one, if we're going to have them in there, general fund revenues collected as a percentage of revised estimates, we have a 90%, and then general fund expenditures expended as a percentage of the budget, 95%. So we're saying that our performance measurements here, our metrics are that our goal is to try to collect 90% of the revenue, but not spend more than 95% of the budgeted expense. So the two are kind of in conflict with me. I think that the numbers at the very least need to be equal. If we're trying to portray a balanced budget, then we want to make sure that we're trying to achieve the same revenue that we have from expenses. I think you get it. So let's see. I was wondering, also in the finance side, if we have, I didn't see anything projected for City Hall exit fees. So as we exit this building and move into the Civic Center, if we expect any type of costs as we're leaving. So for instance, like when you're leaving an apartment, maybe you get your deposit back or not. I'm just kind of curious. We've been in this building a long time, so I didn't see any line items there.
No, there are no exit fees. We will exit the building in good shape, and they will come and look it over, and hopefully we are not charged for anything. It'll just be the savings on the rent we're paying that will allow us to be able to fund what we're going into.
Sure, but nothing, as we're walking out the door, everything's been negotiated properly. Great. Okay, let's see. Apologize. I'm just
Just a reminder on some of the Civic Center stuff, it won't be, some of the stuff we're preparing to get into the Civic Center is in the 18-19 budget, but all the new employees and everything will bring you the staff reports in 18-19, but it won't start till 19-20, because that'll be September 2019, so we'll be going into that budget, so you'll see a lot more of, maybe a little bit of a moving cost and a little bit of all that stuff in the 19-20 budget.
Okay. All right. I was wondering if you could just refresh my memory on the general liability insurance, the change in expense there. I recall something with Cal JPIA last year, and I see a pretty big difference between mainly the 15-16, but we have a lower insurance number by about $75,000 even compared to actuals from last year. I'm sorry, I'm looking at...
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
The general liability insurance for JPIA, they changed the model, and not only did they change the model to make it fair for individuals or cities like us that are relatively good and don't have a lot of claims against them, and put that burden onto the cities that were creating a lot of those claims. So the pool became a little bit fairer for individuals like us that are in good shape. We didn't have to, we're not paying for someone else's misdeeds anymore. And they cleaned up the retrospective adjustment. They used to have a retrospective adjustment. They've done away with that, and it's just moving forward now. So that's where you see a lot of the savings. We've also had some large claims that were being held against us until the claim was finished, and it turned out in our favor. Sometimes they put $300,000 or $400,000 on the books as a reserve. Those have all come up. That's why you see ours lowering a little bit more.
Great. Well, the part about not having, making the system more fair, that's great. So whoever's involved in that, kudos to you all. Appreciate that. Let's see. I was wondering if you could just elaborate a little bit on the, PERS unfunded liability. We understand. I mean, we're paying it off as we go, as things are adjusting. How's it looking in kind of over a 5-year projection right now? I mean, the market was really good last year, so I'm guessing the 7.25 was more than met. So
yes,
how are we looking over the next
7.25 in 16, remember they're a year behind?
Yeah.
So the 16-17, they earned, I think it was about 11.2%, and that will go into this summer's actuarial. So we haven't hit that gain yet. We're completely paid our unfunded liability off, and they have not hit that gain. So we should, and with us paying our liability off, they moved the interest rate from 7.5 to 7. In our payoff, that is in there. So we've already made up for that too. So we're looking good over on coming forward on this next actuarial. And then if this year holds up, I mean, the stock market seems to be going up and down this year. I don't know where it's at, but I'm pretty positive they'll make their 7% this year. So it looks like the next couple of years will be in good shape. And not have any more unfunded liability unless CalPERS' board changes more of the system. Now, they did the mortality rate, they changed that. They changed from 7.5 to 7. So unless the board goes back and changes some more assumptions, that could hurt us a little bit, but I don't see that happening. I haven't heard anything that the board is going to drastically change anything else. They just needed that 7.5 to come down to a 7, and of course they changed the mortality rates because people are just living longer.
Got it.
Just for the sake of the people who don't understand what was being said there, even though our pension obligation is paid off, to some extent PERS has a goal that they set to earn money in the stock market. And if they don't reach that goal, even though we have paid them all the money, we end up being in a deficit. In fact, we paid it off 2 years ago, and then had to come back because they didn't meet their standards that they set, and we had to pay more money. So right now, the assistant city manager's telling us that it looks good going forward, but that doesn't mean in 4 or 5 years, if they go down to 5% and the stock market goes 3%, we might ultimately have to pay some money. But at the moment, we are completely paid off, and it looks good going forward.
Yes, that is correct, Mayor.
A lot of people wouldn't understand that.
Sorry, I just keep going through departments. Okay, all right, great. The next was Public Works, and just getting back to the performance measurements, I really feel like we need more meat in the metrics here when it comes to traffic circulation. So traffic is an issue that we talk about frequently. It's the number one issue. In our community surveys, everything looks great is the number one response. The first thing they want us to focus on is definitely traffic, and we just have one measurement there, and I think it's kind of weak, so I'd like to see more moving forward. I don't have any ideas on exactly what those are. I'm not a traffic engineer, but I could give you my layperson's ideas if you want them, but I figure you can come up with some better ones, and maybe the Traffic and Parking Commission will have some input with respect to that. Looking at utilities in this category, I was wondering what you all think of looking at more solar. So I understand as we look back a few years ago, the cost of solar installation was pretty expensive, and some of the value wasn't there. You know, we're all watching as some of our electric bills are going up. I can only assume that the cities is following, something very similar. And so I'm just wondering if we're getting closer to a combination of grants as well as cost savings, putting solar in it, for instance, some of the parks and things of that nature where we might be able to be generating some power and cutting those bills. I know in utilities, water makes up a higher portion than electric and gas. But on the electric side, I just thought there might be some value, so I just wanted to throw that out as something that I think is worthy of looking into, but I don't have a council consensus at this point, so you all can take with that what you want. Let's see. The management services budget, I was on roughly page 162, 163. There's, in the contract category, there's just one line item that just says general, and it's $95,000, which is a really big amount for one department. So I was wondering if you might be able to elaborate on what is in that general part. So a few thousand, I wouldn't have asked the question, but it's a decent chunk. So.
Are you talking about for the entire department?
Yeah. It's just that there's a line item. Like I said, I think it's page 162 or 163 in my. Let's see if I can get there. It looks like it's page 163. So when I go to the 2015-16 actuals, there's nothing in the general category. Then it jumps to 42,000 in the actuals from last year,
right.
50,000 last year's budget. Now it jumps up to 95. So I'm just kind of wondering what's in this general.
Yeah, so that's going to be some of our marketing program fees, as well as the True North community services or community satisfaction study. That's about 45,000 for this coming budget.
Okay.
So that's the biggest jump.
All right.
That 45,000.
Would that have been in a different category in previous years? Because I guess the True North would have been roughly 35, 40, 45,000.
Right,
years
and it's
ago,
every
too,
other
so.
year, so
Yeah.
it's kind of like the election. It pops in, it pops out.
Yeah. Like I said, but just looking at the actuals, I mean, the actual from 16-17 is 42,000, from 15-16 is 0. So I'm just kind of,
Right.
that would have been the entire amount in the
Right, we
15-16.
didn't have the marketing
Okay.
line under that category. Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right, that makes sense. Let's see. In the public safety, police services category, in the actual budget, we list the number of officers in each category. So there's patrol, and there's motorcycle, and there's sergeants and administrative. But it's just listed there on the far left, and it doesn't give us what the numbers are in previous years. I think there'd be some value there, especially as we're talking about in future years here of potentially adding some officers. I think you said 2 years out. And so when we're looking at year over year or the last 3 year numbers, that seeing an increase there and seeing an increase in service would definitely be good information to have. I'm guessing that during the period we're looking at right now, there haven't been any officer increases, it's just been cost increases, right? Okay. All right, so that's just a suggestion to include there. Then in the capital expenditures toward the end, I'm almost there. With the slurry seals, I see basically about a $500,000 decrease in slurry seals. I know that we're increasing our overall expenditures for road maintenance, trying to keep that PCI at 80, but I was just kind of curious as to looking at last year's budget versus, and I'm going to have to find the page, but I'm sure it's somewhere in the 200s here. It showed, I think, $2.25 million in last year's approved budget, and then $1.75 million this year. So that's where the $500,000 decrease in budgeted amount is what I'm looking at. Let me see if I can find it.
I see where you're talking about.
Okay.
That's just a product of what zones Tom is doing, because that's the 2-year CIP. So when we built the 2-year CIP, in year 1, that was the $2.25 million you see, and in year 2, it went to 1,725. That was built with the revenue that we knew we had at that point in time. So that was, almost a year and a half ago or longer. But with the additional revenue that we're going to get from SB1, the additional revenue that we know that the City Council has pushed over from the general fund, Tom is still looking at the zone he's going to do next year, but all those monies will be implemented. We're going to come back with a midterm CIP in August. So we will bring you a midterm CIP, and we'll adjust any of these numbers we need to adjust. So it looks like we're spending less and less on payment, but we'll come back with a midterm CIP and show you where we'll spend all that money.
Understood, and I knew that we're spending it from basically other sources, so just that particular page just didn't jump out at me in the right way, so that's what was causing the question there. Lastly, before we look at some of the items at the end that I think you need some direction on, the org chart on page 254, and this is the City Council. It's the city org chart. It's not the Housing Authority. There's a lot of discussion amongst elected officials. I've been hearing it for years and years and years, and I've kind of given a lot of thought to it. It's a very minor thing on paper, but I think that there's a lot of value in it. And it's the top of the org chart here is the mayor and the city council. And you've probably heard it before from others, but I feel like it really should be the residents or the people. They're the ones that select each one of us, so we're not the top of the org chart. Any one of us can be replaced by, which has happened on a fairly regular occasion around here recently. Incumbents haven't been very safe, and some that have been sitting in the chairs haven't been safe. But, I think that it's just important for us to constantly focus on that. So I just have it on this one page. I think the Housing Authority is just, it's an organization underneath the City Council, so it's not necessary there, but I would recommend that we include that. And that will conclude my remarks. I'll probably have some comments on the items that they need some direction on, but I'm good with the rest of it.
Yeah, Councilman Voights.
On page 82, it's finance, Mr. Neves. The increase of the proposed budget for 2018-2019, on page 82. It's on contract services activity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me get there. I think I know what you're talking about. It's the fee study.
Yeah.
There's $100,000 in the budget for the fee study. So contract services in the finance department increased to $100,000 for the fee study for 18-19. That's one-time money. It'll come out after the fee study.
It was just a big jump, and I noticed it was, the fee studies make perfect sense. Thank you so much. The other thing, the money that we're investing into our streets is going to pay off in the longevity of our streets. So is that $7 million that we have set aside for that CUP, would that be the whole city at that standard?
The 80 PCI is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be the average for the whole city. So some streets are obviously higher and lower, and that's how you get the average of the 80, but they'll be in great shape.
Awesome. Thank you. Nothing further.
Colonel Cagley, any questions?
I'm sorry. Councilman Robinson, I'm not sure if I understood what you mean by the organization chart. Wasn't sure what you were trying to describe that, if you don't mind going through that again.
Sure. Just at the top of our organizational chart right now, it has the mayor and the city council, and then everything flows underneath that. And I'm just saying, above us, I think, should be the people on the organizational chart.
Well, they are, as you pointed out. Only one question I'm concerned a little bit about, and that's are we vulnerable with the $33 million overrun the sheriff's department's having for the county this year?
No, we are not. We signed a contract, and we will pay what we signed on that contract.
So
That is going to have to come out of the county's general fund,
Thank you.
or Brad's paycheck.
And I, one more question, if I might, Your Honor. Well, it's just it's the biggest expense we have is the police department, and we don't want to be vulnerable to anything else outside of our city.
Yes, I was earlier, you got to remember at the beginning of the year when they adopted that budget, they were in a $27 million deficit at the beginning of the year. So the Board of Supervisors knew this was coming, and so it wasn't a big, this isn't a big surprise.
Thank you. The other question I have actually is a comment. I was worrying about the staffing for the community center. That's going to be pushed out to 2019 and 20 anyway, so it wouldn't apply to this budget, so I have no other questions.
Okay, I have several comments, not many questions. And just to follow on what Colonel Cagley had said, I've said this before, so I'm saying it again. I'll probably say it again. The Performing Arts Center is going to be opening in a year, but to book it, we need to be actively booking it today in order to have it. Don't hire a performing arts person when it opens and then expect the Performing Arts Center. So that needs to come relatively like tomorrow. Also, in terms of the report, and this is stuff in the report, and I believe Councilman Robinson mentioned this before, most of your KPIs, those key performance indicators that are there, are 1 year. They give us 1 year. 1 year honestly doesn't tell me very much. So going forward, I'd like to have a 5-year picture so that I know, that we're going up, we're going down, we're staying steady. The 1 year isn't very helpful. Also, to the extent that it's possible, and I know that it's possible because we got a great finance director, you could ask him to do anything and you give him an hour, he comes back and he does it. I would like some profit and loss data on what we're doing. We're doing things for which we could, recreation classes, for example. What's it cost us? How much revenue we're getting? The sports park, I know this is Councilman Voigt's near and dear to his heart. What's it cost us? So where we could, and it's not in there at all, I'd like to be able to go look and see where certain things, you couldn't do it for all of it, you couldn't even do it for most of it, but you could do it occasionally. And where we could do it, I'd like to have some profit and loss. Of course, we're not a for-profit organization, but it would be good to see. That issue came up, for example, in our discussions with the homeless, and exactly how much money we're putting into taking care of the homeless people. We take care of seniors, we take care of children, we take care of special needs people. So there's a whole group of populations that we take care of, adults. And
some of those questions will be answered while we go through the fee study, because you're going to make decisions about what you would like to charge for a program or service on the community service side. So you want 25% cost recovery, 15% cost recovery. So a lot of that we can vet through while we go through the fee study.
Well, and what I'm saying is, and I'd like to see it in the budget, because honestly, we're making decisions based on data as much as we can. So the more data we can have, the better we can make decisions. Although when you give us such a marvelous budget and we're in such a good economic condition, it's hard to say we need more data. That being said, That being said, look at our economic development. With half as many people, or almost a much smaller budget, we're doing more than we ever did before. So what happened to the other economic budget 2 years ago? That, with less budget, they're doing more. Or look at management services. You guys with the same budget are knocking the ball out of the park beyond anything anybody ever imagined a management services group could do. So to some extent, it makes me worried that, what were we doing? Again, the
Are
budget
you going
is-
to punish us for our successes? Is that where you're going with this?
No, absolutely not. But more data would be useful. And I'm complimenting you. I didn't mean it to come across as a punishment. So with those, and the other thing on finances, on the legal, I wouldn't mind having a category there that talked about lawsuits. How much money we had to pay out in lawsuits as a KPI. And I agree with Councilman Robinson. Some of your KPIs you're really stretching it. Don't stretch. If you don't have it, and it doesn't make sense that there are things, okay, I don't think you want to spend the time doing it, and we don't want to spend the time reading it. Well, that's my final remark, is that so we get this Thursday night, or I got this Friday morning. This is a lot of work for us to do in reviewing this budget in order to make intelligent comments, and obviously my fellow colleagues have done their homework. Earlier would be better than just 4 days to do. I don't know about the rest of you, but this occupied a significant portion of my life in the last 4 days, so sooner would be better. And with that, I believe we're finished with the budget report, unless we have any further comments. Mayor Pro Tem Basil, anything to add?
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right, then, yeah, Councilman Robinson.
Just wanted to add, we've talked, I forgot to mention about economic development, and I don't want the optics to come out of this that we're just eliminating a department. I don't want anyone to feel that economic development is not a very vital and important thing that goes on here at City Hall. Mayor Gardner and I have been meeting and talking about it on a number of occasions. We've met with the Chamber of Commerce. We've met with staff. We've put together a brief report. Economic development is incredibly important, and the department has shrunk a little bit, but in my mind, it's being given a heightened sense of appreciation, awareness, focus in going into the city manager's office. So it's not a standalone department. I think that it's something even more so now, that the city manager is going to be looking at it, very closely. It's under her purview, and so I want the businesses to understand that. I want the residents to know that we care deeply about economic development, and it's not. The elimination is not a bad thing. It's a good thing, that the change that's been made. So I hope that's clear to everyone.
Yeah, excellent comment. So we would then, do you need a motion from us?
No, we don't need a motion.
Accept it?
It's just a workshop. We'll bring
Okay.
it back. If there's nothing more in this budget, if there's a need for more questions, we can bring it back to first meeting in June. If there's not, we'll bring it back in the second meeting in June for the adoption.
All right, then there is a budget discussion items, and I'll move to that part of the agenda now. And the city manager, you have a report on that?
Yes, Mayor and members of the council, we have a report from our economic development manager, Carlo Tomaino.
Thank you, Ms. City Manager. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. So over the course of the year, staff tracked certain items requested by you to be brought back for further discussion at the budget workshop, or for items that we need further direction. As part of our budget discussion this evening, we're presenting projects and programs for possible inclusion in the fiscal year 2018-19 operating budget. These items include potential continued enhancements to the city's animal care program, including funding for the Pet Adoption Center, additional canvassing hours, and a public education officer to continue patrolling parks for off-leash dog violations. Staff has also included the potential purchase of a small number of licenses to develop a government dashboard and updated statistics regarding the dedicated parking enforcement officer. In addition, the City Council requested a possible market study for the Nikasi property, and staff is bringing the expected costs back to you for consideration this evening. Lastly, the report also includes potential budget items that focus on recognizing those that have served in the armed forces and creating a potential new program to engage the city's youth. These budget items total approximately $274,000, with roughly 50% of this number being reoccurring cost. Most of these items, such as those related to animal control services, the government dashboard, and the parking enforcement officer, are included in the current version of your operating budget. There are approximately $78,000 that is currently not budgeted. Most of this is associated with a potential market study. Any changes approved by the City Council this evening will be reflected in the next version of the budget. This concludes my presentation this evening. I'm certainly available, and staff is available to answer questions. In addition, in the audience, we have Mr. Dylan Wright, Samantha Atkinson, and Chris Watson from Orange County Animal Care to answer questions about potential budget items associated with that program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And City Clerk, do we have any public speakers?
No, Your Honor, we've received no requests.
Okay, Council Mayor Pro Tem Basil, did you?
Yeah, I have. I like all of these. I think these are all really great additions.
Oh, excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem. We had two questions from Facebook. Well,
Let's do that first.
Okay, thank you, Facebook.
Axel Maldini, comment to Council: what do we need the residents of Canada Road to do for the City of Lake Forest to install 4 stops at the exit and entrance of the complex Emerald Court? The cars circulate more than 65 miles in an area of 40-mile-an-hour limit, or are you waiting for someone to die, run over here? Thank you.
Yeah, this is a budget workshop, and that belongs more in a public comment. So we can save that for the next meeting, which is only next week, and that can be the first question that you raise. But this is a budget workshop, and this is, items that are specific now to the budget discussion items. If the second item is a budget discussion item, I'd be happy to hear it. If not, that would be the second one to be heard at the next meeting.
It'll probably best wait then.
Okay. Then go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem Basil. Sorry to interrupt you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
So those are actually public comments, even if they're not directly on point, and so we probably do need to hear that additional Facebook Live comment at this point. We can address it at the next meeting, but it was made during this meeting, so we should probably hear it.
You want to hear them both? Well, we heard the first one.
The second one.
Okay. All right, go ahead, read the second one.
Pavla Delab, regarding the future use of the Nikasi nursery site, I'd like to ask whether the site be designated for mixed use that includes food production. Our local sources of food are almost all gone, and most local produce at our farmers market is actually driven in from over 100 miles out. The demand for real produce exists, and the Nikasi site could be a wonderful educational tool for all generations. It would bring us closer to not only the food we eat, but also the true history of the county. We need a well-balanced city that offers a bit of everything, and the Nikasi site is a wonderful opportunity to show how land can be cultivated for everyone's benefit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that is relevant because that is a discussion item, and just to address it briefly, the Nikasi property is private property owned by the Nikasi family, and it's not city property. So if the Nikasi family can do with it whatever they wish within our zoning laws, and it's not up to the city to, the city couldn't afford it in any event, but it is private property. All right, then, Mayor Pro Tem Basil?
Yes, thank you. So again, I support all of the additions to the budget. I just had a couple of quick questions. For the complete market study for $74,000, it was my understanding we were going
if I can interrupt you again, I was going to try to go through it topic by topic rather than skip around.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, that's okay. I should have said that at the beginning.
And my questions are the park patrols, parking enforcement officer, and the market study. So pull me in whenever you're ready to discuss those.
All right. Well, the park patrols is the first set of items are animal control services, and the park patrols are in there. So why don't you go ahead with that?
Okay. I just wanted to clarify on the park patrol. Is that a full-time position, part-time? I don't remember seeing that. I read the report on the things that occurred during the previous try when we were trying this. Future position going to be a full-time or a part-time position?
So, Mayor and Council, that's a position that works full-time 6 months out of the year, July, August, September, at the start of the fiscal year, April, May, June, at the tail end of the fiscal year. And it's done in that way because we think that those are the times of the year in which folks are most likely to be out at the parks walking their dog, because the purpose of the position is to enforce the off-leash dog ordinance.
Yes, now if, Mayor Pro Tem Basil, if I can tweak your memory, you recall that the success of that mission for the 3 months and the $30,000 or $40,000 we spent, they gave out 4 verbal warnings, and they were very stern verbal warnings. Very stern verbal warnings. They gave out 10 citations, and they sold 1 license. And for that, we paid $30-something thousand. Is that the one? Yeah.
$40,000.
$40,000. So at the time, this is a budget workshop. Can we afford to spend $40,000 for 4 verbal warning, 10 citations, and 1 license sold? So, I'll move that we strike that from the budget.
I have a question, and I'll second that. What were the hours of that park?
I'd have to ask one of our colleagues from Orange County Animal Care perhaps to answer that question. I believe that our enforcement was targeted at the hours that we thought we would find more people out at the parks, so the mornings and the evenings, but they developed a schedule to try to specifically be at the parks and at certain parks where we'd find more people walking their dogs.
That is a question that should be relevant to what we're asking, because people come home from work, they walk their dogs on the weekends, but during the middle of the day, you don't see people at the parks. Good evening.
Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Gardner, members of the council, Dylan Wright, OC Community Resources Director. The position was in the field from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. between the
Five
parks.
days a week?
Yes.
5 days, Monday through Friday?
Yes. 4 days a week. Which days?
If I can chime in
Very
real quick.
Yeah, 1 minute, he's getting some more information.
Yes. So 4 days a week, and it varies.
4 days a week, so what days were those?
We absolutely could provide a schedule. I think that the idea was, we could have if there's a fixed schedule. Part of the benefit is if it's not fixed, people know, or if it's fixed, people know when they're coming, so they know when to leave their dogs off the leash. If they don't know if someone's going to be there Monday through Thursday, or if they're going to be there Tuesday, Friday, or maybe on Saturday, then they don't know. So I think that was the approach.
Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Is most people are at work and not out walking their dogs off leash or on leash. So you see a lot more dog walking in the early morning or the evening or the weekends.
Mayor Pro Tem, did you have a question?
Yeah, I see where Councilman Boyce is going, and I agree, because I think that there is a value to this position, but I don't think that scheduling it on a block time of 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, or however it was working, I don't think that that's going to be helpful. What I think might be helpful is if we were to change this to maybe a part-time position where it goes 4 to 7 and during the week, and working Saturday and Sunday, because that's when you're going to find people feeding the ducks and letting their dogs off leash. And now we're going to have Veterans Park coming up, and I don't want to see Veterans Park turn into Village Pond Park. And I think we're going to need some sort of enforcement to prevent people from feeding the animals. And if we can incorporate, that role into this position and just tweak the hours so it's a viable time, I think we should keep it in the budget.
I hate to personally, when you have a miserable failure, I hate to go ahead and say, okay, let me see Act 2, but if you want to, we could ask Management Services to give us a more responsive proposal based on the disastrous results of the previous project.
What we could do is take your comments and discuss with OC Animal Care and come back at the next meeting, well, not the next meeting, but the first meeting in June with a follow-up proposal. I'm not sure if they're able to staff based on the hours you suggested, so we'll have to have some conversation with them, and we can come back with new parameters and a cost, and then the council at that point can direct us whether you'd like it in the budget or not.
Thank you.
Clarify, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., it should not be the time that we are paying for that service.
Right. What I'm hearing you would like is 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. during the week, and then hours on Saturday and Sunday. So that's what we would discuss with OC Animal Care, and we'll see what we can come up with.
All right, do you need that as a motion? You don't, do you? Excuse me, Councilman Robinson.
So first of all, I'm not sure that I agree with the premise that people only take their dogs off leash at certain times of the day. There are people who work odd schedules. There are people who are retired who may do it. So I don't think that finding one fixed time is necessarily going to achieve all the results that we're hoping for. But I think that's the most important factor: is what is the measurement that we are determining for success. So when I read through the report that we have, the measurement seems to be touch points. And if I remember the numbers, it was somewhere just shy of 900 touch points during the period of time there. I think that's where the individual or individuals that was doing this would consider it to be successful. If ours is going to be more of citations and warnings, then if we explain that at the get-go, that this is our real expectation, we'll probably see more citations and warnings. I would hope so. And if we don't, then yeah, definitely. But that's how I looked at it, was that's what the individual saw as their marching orders. Sometimes, we may be different, but for some cities, they don't want to see their residents get a bunch of citations. They just want to see behavioral change. That's what they're really most focused on. And I can't tell you whether we saw any behavioral change based on this pilot program or not, because I don't have the data before to be able to see what may or may not have improved. So that's what I got from it. I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly that if all I'm looking at are warnings and citations, then it was a dismal failure here. But if it's number of people touched, I'm not sure whether that's a good number or not. I couldn't tell you whether 900 is. I think it was over.
3 months, you touched 300 people a month.
Yeah. So, and which was
should be a song. Touch me in the morning.
A dozen a day or 15 a day, and I don't know whether that's a good number or a bad number, and what our expectation was there. But if we set those expectations, then there's a measurement that we can look at.
I believe we did. I believe those were her marching orders. But Councilman Voigt.
And I think that was her marching order because, in fact, I think when we talked about it, we wanted them to go out and change the behavior, not give tickets. I mean, those are our residents of Lake Forest. The fact is that repeat offenders, obviously, but I think there was a noticeable uptick in complaints after the program ended. Was there not? Is it when I was reading the report?
Yes, Mayor, members of the council. So we had received some regular complaints. We look at the Ass Lake Forest system as one metric before the PEO started, and then during her tenure, the first 3 months of this fiscal year, we only had 2 Ass Lake Forest tickets submitting a complaint, and then once her tenure ended, we got an increase in the number of complaints. We got 3 additional complaints. I will say also from a community perspective, we did get a few compliments on having the PEO out there as an enforcement presence by the community.
And those complaints were usually off-leash dogs?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. I think there might have been, just from the responses from the community, that might have been somewhat of a successful program. And what we wanted to do is we want more people to have their dogs on leash.
Yeah, if I could beg to disagree, the data shows that we were averaging about 1 complaint a month, and then there were 5 complaints during her 3 months, and 4 complaints in the 6 months since, which those numbers are so small, there's really no significant difference in those kinds of numbers. So the ALF wasn't. But yeah, in almost all of these things, we're looking for the behavior, but it's hard to measure the behavior, just like your comments on traffic. We're looking for them to speed less. We're looking for behavioral changes. We don't have that measure. So then we're looking at citations, alpha requests, licenses sold. So we go to something else. So I agree. But why don't you come back to us now? Unbeknownst to me, and I think to the rest of the council, we've already restarted this program. Isn't that true?
When you approved this, you approved 3 months in the summer and then 3 months in the spring. So we're in the spring months. So the PO is working right now.
I know, but we never anticipated such disastrous results. So how quickly can you get to them? Or is she going to go out and touch more people for the next 3 weeks before she comes back to us? Or he, I don't know if it's he or she.
I'm not sure what your question is.
How soon can we communicate our desire that they get citations, get licenses, that we see some deliverables rather than contacting people?
Well, I think if the council votes for that direction, OC Animal Care is here, so they can certainly let that individual know, and Carlo can also have a conversation with the individual as well.
I think that wasn't, honestly believe that was in the original proposal. I think we'd just be reinforcing what we originally asked for, which was namely more enforcement by way of citation, warnings at first, but then citations and licenses sold. I think that's what we were looking for. So I'll make the motion that that's what we're looking for. Do I have a second?
I'll second, but the fact that the license sold were the canvassers that we were going into the streets looking for that, I think that there was a different...
Oh, yes, yeah, sure.
So I think that wasn't really the requirement of the park patrol.
Yeah, okay. Take the licenses sold out. Okay, so we have them. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't feel like the program was a failure in any way. I'm just not sure that this is the right way to achieve the goals that we have. And I think that it's important to test, and we have. I don't fault the individual. I don't fault the county in any way. I don't fault the city staff. I'm just not sure that it's, again, what are we trying to measure here? And, if it's the number of off-leash dogs, one person with as many parks as we have, and as many, there were even some green belts that were talked about that weren't even parks. You can make some impact, but even if they don't know whether you're there on a Tuesday or a Friday, you're still just at one of 20 plus locations. So some people may just roll the dice, not being too concerned about it. Others, they're going to say, like what we read in the report, as soon as they're seen, they just run to their car and drive off, or they run home or whatever. So do we have some, a enforcement officer out there running, chasing people down? I don't know. Maybe we need to hire an Olympic sprinter or something like that to be able to do that. But I see a real challenge, and I know we're searching for the solution. I'm not sure that this is the solution, but I don't think that it is, to be honest with you. And so I wouldn't support moving forward, not because I think that, again, the county, the staff, or the individual did anything wrong. I just don't think this is necessarily what we're looking for. I'm sure it made an impact, but it's not the impact we were expecting.
Well, if that's a substitute motion to cancel the program, I'd be happy to second that.
And my guess would be that it's not an appropriate substitute motion because it's just the alternative of the motion. But if I can come up with a substitute, I'll make one.
So the clerk and I are actually a little unclear on what the motion was. We think the motion was to increase the deliverables, such as issuing more citations. And that was what was seconded. So if the alternative motion would be to either have the program continue as it's currently operating, or to defund and cancel the program, although I'm not sure we have the ability to do that. Do we have a contract that yeah, we would have to review the contract to see if we would be able to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking in the form of the budget that we have, so this would be in the 18-19 budget.
So just to defund it in the
Just to
budget.
defund it. I think that the
That you
first
can do.
quarter, we've seen the first quarter that this has actually been in existence, we've seen the results. It didn't meet the expectations we have. We need to regroup and try to figure out what we're really trying to accomplish here. I don't think this is the right thing. Again, it's...
So I think the current motion would be to increase the deliverables, such as issue more citations, and that was
Substitute
seconded by
motion to defund.
Councilmember Voights, and then we have a substitute motion by Councilmember Robinson to defund the program
In 18-19.
in 18-19 budget.
Yeah, I'll second that. Okay, let's vote. So we're voting on the substitute motion, which is to defund it.
We have to do a roll call vote.
Oh,
Mayor.
roll call vote, right. Okay, Councilman Robinson. Oh, you want to call it? Go ahead.
Councilmember Cagley?
No.
Councilmember Robinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Voights?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Basil?
No.
Mayor Gardner?
Yes.
Okay, that motion fails with,
It passed.
I'm sorry.
Passes.
That motion passed with Robinson, Gardner, and Voights voting yes, Basil and Cagley voting no, and so the motion was to defund the program in the next year's budget.
Yes, in the 18-19 budget.
Thank you, that's the word I was looking for.
Now, that leaves us the question of what we do for the next 2 months.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, this is taxpayer money. I'm upset that we're wasting the taxpayers' money this way. So can I make a motion? Can I go back now to the original motion, which is to emphasize, if we're stuck with this program, at least let her go out and do some more enforcement?
Enforcement is, I think, a tricky thing. I mean, she's patrolling the city, so how do you put if she's lucky she finds a dog off leash, or if the citizens are doing what they're doing and they know that she's out there, maybe she's not getting a lot of that are, and it's just a big city to see. So I think that when people go to the parks, they kind of gauge if there's dogs or kids out, they'll let the dog off the leash, but kind of keep it in the back part of the park is where I'm seeing at. So no, I'm going to abstain.
I agree with you that, if we feel like something isn't working, that, it is taxpayer money. I wouldn't, again, I'm not saying that it's not working, I'm just saying it's not achieving the goal that I had. There may be something in the future that makes more sense, but, at this point, I don't want to continue with what we're doing, and I didn't think just switching the hours around made sense. From a personal ethic standpoint, I mean, we have a contract. I'm sure we could try to negotiate or break a contract, with the other party, but, we have a contract in place. I think that we have to stick with it. Similar to, when we're in the midst of changing from one vendor to another that are providing public work services or community development, whatever they might be, we may get a better deal with the future contract, but we're still under contract with the existing one until that contract expires. So I would just say we stick through what we've already put in place. Emphasizing, if you feel like the previous direction was there, then just emphasizing that if the staff agrees that we focus on citations and warnings. I think if the previous direction's there, you could do that. If not, then if it's not in the contract, the other party may agree to some change in the scope, but they're not contractually obligated. So
I have to live with it, okay? Next item is the $15,000 extension of the pilot program. Any comments, questions on that? Do you want a motion on each of these things?
I'll make a motion
Yes,
that
that
we
would be
approve it.
helpful.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Basil makes a motion to approve the 15,000 extension.
I'll second it.
Colonel Cagley seconds. Vote, again, it's roll call vote.
Okay. Councilmember Cagley?
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Voights?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Basil?
And that was yes.
Mayor Gardner?
The peep was yes. Yes.
That motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item number 3, or 2 is listed on the chart, is increasing license canvassing hours. And I had a little problem understanding the data there. And the data there says we got 750 licenses, and the revenue for that was $18,516. And was that the 750 licenses we got from the additional canvassing, or that was from the total canvassing?
Mayor Gardner, that was from the total canvassing through the end of December. But we do have and requested some updated statistics from OCAC, and I'm able to provide you with a quick verbal update on the number of anticipated new licenses for the fiscal year as a result of the additional canvassing. We expect at least an additional 400 new licenses, which will generate additional revenue beyond that number. Likely about an additional $9,400, which ends up basically paying for the additional hours that we requested.
Okay, so the addition, and that's that's my main issue there. So the additional licensing is going to pay more or less for the additional cost of the licensing.
That is correct, yes.
Well, that's great, because licenses accrue over time, so if we have a one-time expense, and even if we lost a little money on that, over time we're making a lot of money and people are in the system. Anybody have any questions on that? Then I'll take a motion to...
Motion to approve?
Okay.
I'll second.
Second, and a roll call vote.
Councilmember Cagley?
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Voights?
I think there will be a point where we saturate the city with licenses, but I vote yes now.
Mayor Pro Tem Basil?
Did we lose you?
Did you call me to
Yes,
vote?
Vote yes.
your turn to vote on the additional
Oh,
licensing.
I'm sorry. I vote yes.
Okay,
Mayor Gardner?
and I vote yes.
That motion carries unanimously.
Okay, next item on the list is the dashboard software. And are there any questions? All right, then do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Cagley?
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Voights?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Basil?
Yes.
Mayor Gardner?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously.
Okay, next item on my list is the dedicated parking enforcement officer. Do we have any questions on that?
I do.
Okay, go
Is
ahead.
this going to be from taken out of the part of the OCSD contract, or are we taking them separate and making them part of our code enforcement?
Mayor and members of the council, this is continuing with the position that's in the sheriff's contract.
Is there any way we could get this away from the sheriff's contract and in our own code enforcement?
We aren't staffed up to do that. We don't have the infrastructure to do that. That would probably take us some time to set that up, so it's not something we could do effective July 1.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Yeah,
I'll second.
okay. Just to follow up on Mayor Pro Tem Basil's question, I did meet last week with someone who does this kind of enforcement in other cities, and he is giving us a proposal. So we may, in fact, have a proposal coming our way in the near future to do this from an alternate point of view. So we are working on it. As to the, go ahead.
If we approve this tonight, could we allocate the fund we're approving tonight toward a separate contract if that's where the council chooses to go?
Well, if you allocate this funding tonight, essentially you're approving keeping that position in the sheriff's contract. So in that respect, you wouldn't have the money available to spend on an alternate contract. You would have to allocate additional funds. Now, the council did already give us direction to start researching alternate enforcement for street sweeping as part of our analysis of our street sweeping program in general. So it is on our work plan for next fiscal year, but we don't have numbers to present to you tonight. It would be presented to you as part of that work effort.
Because I like the idea of this not being added to the sheriff's contract, because it's already 40% of our budget. If we put this in there with all the added costs, I don't know if we need an officer level enforcement. We just need someone to go around and, for ticketing purposes. And I think keeping it in the sheriff's contract may actually end up costing us more money as opposed to separating it out and finding another way.
Yeah, quite frankly, I share that fear with you. Let me give you some of the figures I did, which the sheriff's office supplied us with, in which everyone from the council has got information on the citations. We give out about 20 different kinds of citations. But the bottom line is there's only about 5 of them that actually impact parking. The rest of them have got nothing to do with our parking problem. They're like an expired registration, a license plate not on a vehicle. I mean, these are all important things, but they have nothing to do with solving the parking problem. The items that have to do with solving the parking problem are the 72-hour stopping, inoperable vehicles left on the street, repairing vehicles on the roadway, detached trailers, and the oversized vehicles in registration in residential areas. Those are the 5 areas that actually make a difference to the parking enforcement, not to traffic, not to police, but to the one thing for which we spending $130,000 a year. Now, in 2008, according to the data, we generated 102 citations across those 5 areas, and in 2017 we did 69. So that's a difference, about a 33% difference. So we were giving out more citations than before. If you divide that over the 5 months that it's been in operation, then you get 7 per month. So by spending $130,000 a year, we're getting 7 more citations per month. And that's about $10,000 a year, 7 citations a year. That's a pretty high cost per citation for the citations that make a difference in parking. It's a lot of citations. I don't know what the totals were on the overall citations, so we're getting a lot more citations. But in terms of the citations really impacting parking, I don't think, in my mind, that that's worth an investment of $130,000.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How long has this been, or do we have an extra traffic or parking enforcement officer in Lake Forest now?
Mayor and members of the council, back in July, the council approved the hiring of that parking enforcement officer. It took a while to get the position filled because of backgrounds and people dropping out of backgrounds. However, the position was filled effective January 19th, 2018. That's when the position was filled, and the data that was provided you was January 19th through April 18th, so it's a 3-month period of when that position has been staffed. And it's compared to the same month in 2017, same time frame. So during those 3 months in 2017, you had approximately 948 parking citations written, and that same time frame in 2018, you had 2001, which is an increase of 1,053 parking citations that were issued. no disrespect, Mayor Gardner, but I disagree with your opinion that there's only 5 parking citations that affect parking. Any citation that's left on a vehicle is going to change behavior, whether it's for a cracked windshield, expired registration, no front license plate, because that vehicle's parked on a public street. And if people don't want to get a parking ticket for that, they're either going to correct it or they're going to move their vehicle. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to move vehicles. So even though somebody gets, you get a complaint or you mark a vehicle for a 72-hour violation, members of the public and the residents, they don't necessarily understand that, and they want to see action being taken. So we can go there and cite a vehicle for expired registration and mark it for a 72-hour violation and have a more immediate effect. And then come back 72 hours later, and if it's still there, we can now issue potentially a second citation, or depending on the time frame and the circumstances of the vehicle, we can tow it. So we're taking multiple actions for one vehicle to try to get it moved quicker. Your tows, when we look at towing expired registration, vehicles that are expired over 6 months, that's being you haven't paid your registration for the DMV and it's expired 6 months plus. If that vehicle's on a public street, it's subject to tow at 6 months. So people are storing their vehicles on our streets and they're not paying the registration. So to move those vehicles, we cite them for registration or we tow them. Otherwise, people have to move that car and put it on their own driveway, in their own garage, on their own personal property to get it off the public streets. So there's roughly 29 violations of the Lake Forest Muni Code or the Vehicle Code that are listed on the citation. There's also a section for other. And we can go through the Vehicle Code, which is approximately, 6,000 plus pages, and find numerous parking violations that a civilian officer or deputy, sworn officer, can cite for. So the data that was provided to you is 29 sections over that 3-month period, and I would argue that every single one of them that's issued affects parking in the city and tries to change the behavior of those highly impacted areas. Not to mention other areas where, unfortunately, some of the complaints I get where people are complaining that they've parked there for 25 years in front of their house, and why are they getting a ticket now? Well, because you're parking an unregistered vehicle on the street in front of your house. But the bottom line is any citation on a windshield is going to change behavior, because the general public's not going to stop and look at that citation to see what it is. They're just going to be driving by and they're going to see citations on windshields. So whether you go down a street like Osterman and you give 5 tickets out, and one for registration and one for no front plate and one for a 72-hour violation and one for an oversized vehicle, the public just sees 5 citations. They don't know what they're for. They just know they need to move their car, otherwise they're going to get a ticket. So that's what we're trying to do.
And again, I have to disagree with you. Most of those are not. We hired this person because we have a parking problem in the city, and there were specific things which will impact parking. Some of them directly, a missing tag or a license plate not covered. I'm not sure that's going to move a vehicle directly. Now, if you mean that they're going to be wary about where they park, and indirectly it might affect people, maybe it might, but the direct evidence, and you gave us no data on towing, and the direct evidence you've given us is not very impressive that you've impacted parking. So today, I had someone in my office complaining about parking. A week doesn't go by where I don't get people complaining about parking. So, I haven't noticed a difference in people finding more space for parking in the data here, although it suggests a little bit, but parking citations also doesn't necessarily change behavior. So once again, the same thing with the pet thing. I'm being asked to spend $130,000 a year plus $50,000 for a car one time to solve a problem of parking, and I'm trying to look at the data and say, am I solving that problem? I don't see it. So, it's as simple as that. Others, you may consider that the $7 a month is worth the investment And that's tickets. That's not spare space on the street. That's not more parking spaces for people. That's tickets given out, which may or may not affect parking. So when I look to see whether or not that's true, I look to see whether or not we would see that the number of citations is going down every month. If, as you suggest, that that's an effective technique and it changes behavior, then in fact we should see the number of tickets going down every month as we go through the program, which in fact we don't see. In some cases, it's actually going up. So I don't see where this is actually impacting the problem we have of parking.
Mayor, may I respond?
Sure.
To answer your first comment about providing tow data, I believe there was a memo sent out today that had tow data in it to the council, and during that same 3-month period, we had tow stats included in that. And just to point out a highlight here, the previous time frame last year, remember we're talking about a 3-month period, the number of vehicles towed really didn't change. It was 454 to 455 in 2018. So we towed one more vehicle in that same 3-month period. And we're talking about all sorts of vehicles, vehicles for people that are arrested for DUI or any other type of reason why you would tow a vehicle. But if you look at vehicles impounded for parking tickets, for excessive parking tickets, we went from 3 to 10 in 2018. If you look at for vehicles expired over 6 months on your streets, we went from 110 to 163. That's a significant increase. When you look at cars towed for being stored or abandoned on the public roadway, we went from 5 in 2017 to 27 in this same 3-month period. I understand it's frustrating that it took a while to get the position hired, but we're only looking at data for 3 months, a 3-month time frame. And so with those tows, there is a dedicated person in the city going out doing parking enforcement. I can't measure how many spaces are more available as far as parking spaces available in the city. I don't have that tool or that type of manpower to measure streets and tell you how much more parking is available. All I can tell you is that we are being effective, and it takes time to change behavior. And no matter what the citation is, it takes time to change that behavior. Sometimes it takes someone getting 2 or 3 parking tickets for street sweeping or for any other violation before they realize, I got to start moving my car. And we've only been in full effect for 3 months' time. So I think it's very difficult to say that the program is ineffective. You're saying 7 vehicles or 7 citations a month. I look at the data, and we've got an increase of 1,053 citations over a 3-month period. That's over 300 citations a month, not 7.
Yeah, not parking related. I'm just looking at the parking.
Once again, that's a difference of opinion, because I believe they're all related. All citations can be related to parking. All citations on a car will affect behavior and make people take notice. Now, yes, it's an indirect measurement of, are they really moving their car? That takes time to tell. Thank you.
Mayor Carter, I think that my motion to approve this position will be well spent, because we're coming up with a traffic and parking commission that we're hopefully, for example, I rode with my wife to go pick up my mother-in-law off at Cherry Parkway today, over there in the light industrial area. And that needs some serious uptick on parking enforcement. But we have to put ordinances involved in that Cherry Street parking, where there maybe every 4 hours they have to move their vehicle or something. But that's a storage, because there was 4 inches of dirt and leaves in the gutter along Cherry Parkway. And there was cars you couldn't see in the windows. The car windows were so dirty with dust. So I think that with the enforcement we have with the Parking and Traffic Commission and the ideas they're going to have, I think that will be well spent.
Well, quite frankly, I was looking at the 5 months, but I agree with you. 3 months isn't enough time to see the effectiveness. So I'll withdraw my objection.
So I'm a motion to approve.
I think it was motioned and seconded.
I have it moved by Councilmember Voigt and second by Mayor Pro Tem Basil.
All right.
Okay, roll call vote.
Councilmember Cagley?
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Voigt?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Basil?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
That motion
Okay.
carries unanimously.
Okay, next item is the Nakasi Market Study, and I'm not sure why this appears. Are you asking us to fund this?
We're reporting back to you that the project applicant has declined to fund this. And so we're bringing it to the council to give you the option to give us direction on what you'd like to do at this point.
Okay, any comments?
It's not my property. I'm not going to pay to fund a study on that property, so.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Then, any other comments?
My comments are the same that I made when this was first brought up. It's someone's property. I think that they determine what they think is the best use for their property. They come to us with an application, and then we have to give it an up and down vote based on the information that's presented to us. And if we want to explore some alternative uses ourselves, we could do that. It's no surprise to me that they didn't want to fund it, because if I were in their shoes, I probably wouldn't either. You know, the city asking me to do something with my own property when I have a different use for it, it just doesn't make sense. I think that they're looking at what, and I'm talking specifically about the property owner right now in Nakasi. They're looking at what they think is going to be the best use for their property. And
No, I don't. I think you're mistaken. This was an ask of the Toll Brothers, not of Nakasi.
And Toll Brothers is the applicant. They're applying to do something with property that currently belongs to Nakasi, right? So it's Nakasi's property, and Nakasi is negotiating with Toll Brothers, my understanding, but there's just an option.
Yeah, but Toll Brothers needs to come back to us, and the question we asked them, I believe it was Mayor Pro Tem Basil, but I can't remember exactly. The question we asked them was, you want us to change your zone? Is this the best way that the city can use that land if we're going to change the zone? And that was, I thought, a reasonable question.
Well, and I don't know the company very well at all, but my guess is that they're a residential builder. And so when
Toll Brothers is probably the number 5 builder in the country.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know whether they do commercial, industrial, whether they build universities or things like that. So, when they get an option to purchase, they're expecting, they believe the best use for that property is residential, because they're a residential builder. If they didn't, then they wouldn't be applying for it. And so if the city wants to consider different alternatives, it's a completely different story. But I think that the city would want to present that information to Nakasi, not to Toll Brothers, because you can go to Toll Brothers and say, we believe that the best use for this is office space. And they say, well, we're not an office space company, thank you very much, we have no interest, right? But Nakasi might be interested in that information, because they own the property. Does it make sense? I mean, that's kind of how I've always looked at it. I mean, if they didn't think that the best use for them would be residential, then they wouldn't have applied.
It is the best use for them, but
of course, yeah.
We are the council of the people of the city of Lake Forest. We're interested in what's best for the city of Lake Forest, not what's best for Toll Brothers.
No, and I get what you're saying, but what my point is, so why would Toll Brothers pay for it?
To
Because they're a residential builder.
convince us that the people of Lake Forest benefit best by them putting a residential development there.
Okay, and I would say that that's the property owner's responsibility, not the applicant. Because they believe that it's for them. The property owner is the one that currently owns it. It's currently zoned a particular way. Of course, the applicant is requesting the rezoning, but if it didn't get approved, Nakasi would be in the same spot, right? And so they're the ones that need, if we feel like we want to look at all the best uses for that, in my mind, it should be either us or Nakasi. It doesn't make sense for it to be the applicant.
Well, obviously, we have a different
I understand.
logic. In any event, does anybody want the city to spend the money on the Nakasi?
I make a motion we table that.
Okay. Second?
Second.
I'm sorry, what was the motion?
Table it.
Oh, table it, thank you.
So roll call vote?
Councilmember Cagley?
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Voights?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Basil?
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Gardner? That motion carries unanimously.
Next item on the agenda is Hometown Hero Program. And maybe City Manager, could you give us a brief summary of what that is for the people listening?
I was given the finger there, so I...
Not the finger.
That didn't come out right.
A finger.
The Street Banner Program is something that the Planning Commission brought to the City Council when they gave their annual report, which I believe is in February. And essentially what they asked the City Council to do was to approve a program similar to what they have in the city of Huntington Beach, which enables residents to display street banners that honor their loved ones who are in the military. So what we've done is I looked at this many different ways. This is the least expensive way to run this as a pilot program. What we would do is the city currently has approximately 165 banners displayed on about 100 street poles. What I'm trying to avoid is installing more hardware on more street poles, because that's when it gets very expensive. But if we set aside, as a pilot program, if we set aside 10 of those and we allow residents to purchase the banners, that's very cost effective. Then the cost is approximately $200 per banner. And what you see in the budget here, the $2,000, it would be completely offset by the fees to purchase the banner, basically, the $200. If this is successful in the following year, if council wishes, we could expand the program. We could expand it to Civic Center Drive on some of those street poles. We could also, if it's really successful, we could also look at street poles on Ridge Route near Veterans Park. But I wanted to start small, and this was a cost-neutral way to do that. So that's what we're recommending.
Thank you.
How much are the hardware to install the street?
I don't know the cost of the hardware. I know with the hardware, the cost went up to about $600 a banner, which is very expensive.
So, and that's actually put on a pole, and it's non-movable then?
That's correct. So they come out with a boom truck, and they install new hardware on a pole. That's when the price starts to go up significantly.
You have suggested streets that we would start this on?
I would have to look and see where, the answer is no. But what we would do is we would look and see what makes sense. We'd look and see where we currently have the 100 street poles installed, and then we would select 10.
So, El Toro Road, Shop and Dine, we have them up and down from Rockfield all the way to Muirlands. Would that be a potential spot?
It could. What I would look at would be, we have different kinds of banners that we display, and so I think the question is, what would we be most willing to have less of, right, to make room for 10 banners for veterans? So, for example, if you didn't want to touch the banners advertising the Shop and Dine program, we might look at some of the banners advertising the 4th of July or the holidays.
So these would be put up to be an annual thing and not brought down for the holiday ones?
That's correct. These would be up year-round, and we'd try it for 1 year and see how that works.
Could they not be replaced when the holiday season? I think Thanksgiving is we start putting up our banners. Just before the beginning of November, we put the banners up for the holidays. Could we replace them with that and then put them back up after the holidays?
To make sure that I understand your question, are you asking if we can put up the veterans banners and then take
year
them
round
down?
And take them down for the holidays and then put them up back after the holidays?
We could do that.
So I don't want to see an either or.
Sure. We could do that. That's a little different than what the Planning Commission asked us to do, which was to mirror a program they have in the city of Huntington Beach, which is to display them year-round. But we could certainly do that. What it means is that you're moving more banners around more frequently.
Sounds a little funny to me, too. It's a loved one, they put up a banner, and now you're going to say, well, take it down because we're putting up Christmas, and then we'll put it.
Well,
the more often we have, if that would probably be a significant contract amendment, because what we would be asking them to do is to go out more frequently and pull down some banners and hang up additional banners. but I didn't explore that with the contractor.
I'd like to send it back to planning. I love the idea, but I think that we have enough new streets in Lake Forest that we could intermingle them, so that where El Toro Road, or I think Bake Parkway here gets a lot of holiday banners from the beginning of the border all the way up to New Baker Ranch, but maybe do every other one, for that way that we have the holiday ones still go up, so you're not losing the holiday spirit. But the fact is, we're still honoring those that are serving our nation.
I think we could work something out like that, where we still leave these veterans banners up that they pay for. They're still up for a period of 1 year. I think in a way that makes sense, where we're not pulling down, I guess, not necessarily 10 in a row.
Our new Veterans Park on Ridge Route has no hardware for banners along that
Correct.
Ridge Route. So
Correct.
that would be all new expenses. So I think that we have to fine tune it a little bit, but I'll make a motion to move this forward, but to work out the budgets and bring it back to us.
Well, Mayor and members of the council, so we're asking you for seed money, essentially.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to seed money. I like the idea.
Yeah.
But I think that I'd like to work it out to where El Toro Road doesn't lose all of its holiday banners, neither does it lose all of its shop and dine banners. So we sporadically...
We can spread them around the city.
That would be kind of my motion, but I definitely support the concept.
Yeah, we anticipate going to most likely the Planning Commission with parameters for the program and having them, take a look at them and buy off on them. So there'll be an opportunity for you to see the details of when we start
Then come back for us.
Yeah, we could present it to you if the council would like to see it as well.
My motion is to approve the pilot program and the seed money to move forward with that.
Okay.
Thank you, and I love the idea, so I'll be giving my kudos to the Planning Commission.
I think I heard Mayor Pro Tem Basil seconded.
Can it still be discussed?
Sure.
I would like to see what Mr. Voigt said is fine. I'd like to see the parameters, though, because it's rife with opportunities here. You say in here, residency in Lake Forest, is that the service member, or is that the family of the service member in residency in Lake Forest? A considerable difference. Active duty, certainly I would not qualify. I'm long since retired, so I can talk about this subject without being in conflict. I just want to make sure that it's done the way it's meant, where you want it to go. Los Alamitos does this also along Catella Highway and in leading into Lexington, leading into the Joint Forces Training Base. It's a great idea. I certainly support it. I just want to make sure the parameters are narrow enough, defined enough that it doesn't get abused.
I believe Colonel Cagley has just volunteered to head your ad hoc committee.
New ad hoc committee.
And I'm going to be the other volunteer for that with Colonel Cagley.
Thank you.
Okay, vote, roll call, please.
I apologize. Councilmember Cagley?
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Voigt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Basil?
Yes.
Mayor Gardner?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the next two I think we could do together, City Council internship and Youth in Government Day.
I'd like to move those.
Okay, do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
Okay, any comments on that? Okay, roll call, please.
Sorry. Councilmember Cagley?
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Voigt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Basil? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
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 That motion carries unanimously.
All right, well, that concludes our budget workshop, and this not being a regular council meeting, then there are no comments, and I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Facebook Live, and we'll see you next Tuesday for a regularly scheduled city council meeting.
Sure.